know, Matt, a couple of times you brought up the concept of Jainism.
Yeah, and I'm completely baffled right here because whoever typed up your comment said Jonist and Jonism. Yeah. And I was like, I don't know what the hell that is. But yeah, Jainism, go ahead.
Well, there's one thing I did want to mention. A lot of times you mention Jainist. Actually, we refer to ourselves as Jains.
Yes, thank you. And that is correct, and I knew that. I'm just sloppy.
Sorry. I figured I might as well point it out if I'm going to call in.
So you are a Jain?
Yes, I am a Jain.
Well, you're the first Jain caller that I'm aware of, so welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
And I'm sure after I piss you off, you'll forgive me.
I'm very doubtful that'll happen. Okay. I consider myself atheist, and by the colloquial sense, I think all Jains are atheists. So it's probably difficult to piss us off with a show called Atheist Experience.
See, and this is the thing, because I know Jains have been used as an example, I mean, a lot by Sam Harris and other stuff. And before Sam started addressing this, I had only heard of it as an offshoot of Hinduism and Buddhism, but I hadn't considered, I don't know enough about it to have ever drawn the conclusion that they are majority atheist or atheistic.
Well, actually, I do want to say that could be something that could piss off a Jain, that we're offshoots. Jainism and Hinduism developed around the same time, yeah, and Buddhism developed a little bit later.
Right.
But that's history. Actually, the entire idea behind Jainism is that there is no creator God, there is no higher being. It's based on lifestyle principles that are applied in a spiritual sense, if that makes any sense.
It doesn't, but I'll let you go.
Okay, basically, the core concept of Jainism is the idea of nonviolence. I'm not going to use any of the Jain words. Basically, the idea is nonviolence, and through applications of nonviolence, you can free your soul, so to speak. I don't really buy that part of Jainism, but that's just me personally.
So you're more of a philosophical Jainist, a quasi-pacifist Jainist. Well,
not a Jainist, a Jain.
Jain. God, I did it again. You keep correcting me on that.
I'm philosophical more.
You keep correcting me on that because I want to get it right. Because one of these days I'm going to make fun of them, and I want to make sure that I'm using the right name. Because I've already pissed off pantheists this week, but I'll talk about that later. But anyway, continue. I'm sorry. So you said you don't buy this idea that through the nonviolence you're going to free the soul. Is that because you don't accept the concept of the soul?
Yeah, I'm a scientist. I'm an engineer. I don't really see the proof of a soul, so I don't really buy that a soul exists.
So what benefit?
The idea, but I don't personally buy it.
So and this is partly me expressing my ignorance, but also sincerely trying to understand. For any religion, and we'll stick with Jainism for now, is that if the tenets or the aspects of that religion are to a certain purpose, for example, nonviolence as a way of freeing the soul, and yet you reject the idea of a soul, what exactly is it that you're trying to accomplish that would make you say you're a Jain?
Well, it is sort of that idea, and this is one of the reasons. I actually done a reasonable amount of research on different religions, and I think Jainism, in a sense, is partially a religion, but in comparison to a lot of others, I could quite easily call it a philosophy more than a religion, simply because Jainism itself admits that it might be wrong. Even within whatever Jain scriptures there are, even Jain monks and nuns will tell you that Jainism could be 100% wrong. But another one of Jain's principles is that you should accept other people's ideas as being possibly correct. And so we have this idea that, well, this is what we think is right, and so this is the path we're going to follow until someone else can prove us wrong.
Okay, it sounds almost pragmatic, I guess, yeah. or I mean, it may be the best religion on the planet, just for the simple fact that it admits it might be wrong. I do take exception to the idea that you should admit the possibility of other ideas, because while it's true that some of them are worthy of admitting as possible, there are others which are clearly impossible. Definitions of God which are self-contradictory and contradictory with reality.
I'm not going to say that it's a perfect religion in any sense. That Jainism's got a lot of problems. There are a lot of holes. But at the same time, Jainism, at least from the monks and nuns I've spoken to, Jainism is at least willing to correct itself. We're willing to say that we don't have the whole clue, but work with what we do know.
It reminds me a lot of Buddhism in some regards, some philosophical regards. So what is it that you would say is distinct about Jainism that you like as opposed to Buddhism, for example? Or is it not that big of a concern?
Right. I think the biggest thing, at least the two biggest philosophies for my life that I've gotten out of Jainism are the idea of nonviolence in probably what goes a lot further than we see in Western culture. Like in the East, nonviolence has almost a whole different meaning than we see out here. But the second idea is this idea of accepting other people, and it's a very core belief in Jainism. I don't even know how to put it any other way. If you don't believe that, you really aren't Jain in a manner of speaking. You have to be willing to accept that other people are there, they have their own ideas, they have their own philosophies, and that it's not up to you to make them think differently. And
can't be a Jain.
Sorry?
I can't be a Jain. Because the natural consequence of other people being there, Mark keeps holding up a sign that says "Me Tarzan," but one of the consequences of there being other people there and acknowledging that, and I acknowledge that everybody has the right to believe as their conscience dictates. However, we have to share this little ball in space, and that means that where one person's ideas conflict with somebody else's, well, there's the word, conflict. And what one person believes influences their actions, and one might say dictates, because I'm not completely convinced that you can ever act unless you're acting on behalf of some belief. So your beliefs influence your actions, and your actions have consequences, and those consequences can affect other people. And therefore, if I see somebody whose beliefs are contributing to actions which negatively affect me, negatively affect people I care about, negatively affect all of us on the whole, then I feel, not only do I feel that I have the right to address them and attempt to explain this problem and correct it, I feel I have an obligation to do that. And while I'm not a violent individual, I'm also not a pacifist. And when it comes to, for example, if this certain group of people are actually enacting their beliefs with the use of violence, then I'm fine with advocating violence as a reply. So, I mean, on those grounds, I don't think that I could be a Jain.
Well, it's actually kind of interesting that you say that, because I'll gladly admit it. I'm not a complete pacifist. I think to do that is almost impossible. But at the same time, obviously, I'm sort of talking about Jainism in a very broad sense.
Sure.
At the same time, there are a lot of cultural ethics in Jainism that sort of talk about how people should be allowed to think as they want, but that doesn't mean they should be allowed to act as they want. Everyone is responsible for everyone else, and you can't act on your own basis if it means you're going to cause harm or negativity towards others.
Yeah, and see, that's the problem. I think the only way, not the only way. I was going to say the only way to correct action is to correct the beliefs. That's not true. You can lock people up. You can inhibit action by force. But the best way to correct actions that are harmful is to correct the beliefs that are responsible for them. And you know, I'd like to think that that's in part what we do here, what other people. And I understand that some of this is a matter of perspective. For example, there are many sincere fundamentalist Christians, for example, would say that they're convinced that my beliefs are harmful to them and the country, and therefore they're trying to correct that as well. The difference isn't just a simple matter of opinion. It comes down to being able to demonstrate harm. And in the absence of a demonstration, a causal demonstration of this belief, this action, this harm, then I'm an advocate for freedom. And what I find from the people on the opposite side, and I realize I'm narrowly focusing on somebody who's not you at all. I mean, you and I may have no serious objections at all. What I find on their part is that they want to assume the harm, ignore the own harm that they're doing, and present no evidence or logical argument for the connection between them. Anyway, I didn't mean to take off from that, but...
I don't know, yeah, I was going to say, it makes a lot of sense.